welcome to another episode of The Split, the young adult book review podcast for readers and writers. I'm Bryan Cohen, the author of the Ted Saves the World series, and that is Robert Scanlon, the author of the Dreamer Chronicles, and he is washing off something, biological
scratching
chemicals.
Blisters and...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you must have,
you must have been impacted by NORAD's chemical weapons that were released in the earthquake that happened after the hailstorm, that happened after the tsunami.
Which happened after the volcano erupted. Are we talking about a disaster movie or what?
We are talking about Monument 14 by Emmy Laybourne, a young adult book with many disasters, and I really enjoyed this fast-paced read. I'm excited to talk about it. And the device of the bioweapons was very, very interesting, and it added a lot of intrigue to this story. Just when we thought our characters were okay.
That's right. These poor kids. It's another one of those books where the poor kids just get thrown into every scenario you could possibly think of, and then it gets worse. But a big shout out as well to Jessica Gerashensky for recommending this book, because I may have stumbled across it, eventually, because there's a movie in the works, and we tend to look for some of the young adult books that have garnered that type of attention, because we know there's something in the story that people who bring them to the big screen have seen as well, and that's what interests us as readers and writers, of course. So so thanks a lot, Jessica, because this was a great fast-paced read, as you say. So I guess we should begin. Let's
start. Dean is like most kids his age, awkward, nerdy, and endlessly hung up on the most popular girl in school. When he runs to catch the bus one morning, little does he know that he and his classmates are about to change forever. The hail struck first, taking down the ever-present computer network and ending millions of lives. As the group of 14 students tries to take refuge in a chain superstore, a cloud of unearthed chemical weapons will turn what little is left of their streets into a wasteland. To stay alive, they'll need to stick together, even if Dean and several of his classmates are ticking time bombs just waiting to go off. So... lots happening here, and in a very short period of time. It's probably one of the shortest books we've read, full novels that we've read. I loved how fast-paced this was. We get right into the action.
Yep.
The book had one compelling scene after another. Even if it wasn't an action scene, it was there were things happening.
Yep.
And it's the kind of thing that makes you want to pick up book 2 right away and find out how things keep going. So definitely exciting. Exciting book.
Totally have to. Even though the kind of part of the story arc is resolved in book 1, it's not fully resolved. So you definitely want to read on. But kudos to Emmy Laybourne for, again, another debut, I believe. Wow, there's some good authors out there doing some great work with their debut novels. It's so good to see, and it's an apocalypse, and what an apocalypse! I mean, it's
a heck of a it's like a Rube Goldberg device of apocalypse, because it's just one bouncing into the other. There's a volcano. I
mean, you're about 2 pages into it, and it all just suddenly starts happening, and yet somehow you kind of. Unlike, say, last week's episode where we took a while to warm up to Tsunami, Dean, I felt I was with him right from the start. So, and maybe the save the cat moment was the opening words about the not saying goodbye to your mother.
Essentially feeling bad about not saying goodbye to your mother.
Yeah. And so there's a classic example of that. And from a reader's perspective, you get, I mean, she does flag quite a lot that a little bit like Stephen King does, that something's going to happen, but little did I know that wasn't how my day was going to end, that sort of thing. So, those are okay devices if you use them every now and then, I think. As a reader, I don't mind them in moderation. So I'm not speaking so much from a writer's perspective, but from a reader. But certainly this was a book I couldn't put down. There were a few nights there where I went to sleep a little later than I would have liked.
I was the same for sure. I usually finish the second book because we filmed 2 at a time. I usually finish the second book like a couple hours beforehand, but I finished this a whole 24 hours ahead of time. I was just blazing through it.
And just as also, it's called Monument 14. The town is Monument, and there are 14 kids who are trapped. But they're not all kids. I mean, there are 2 seniors, 6 high schoolers, and 6 elementary. Is that correct?
Yeah. So 6 high schoolers, 2 8th graders, like 13 years old, and then the 6 elementary school kids.
Okay, yeah, got it. It's a little bit wrong way. Which you think might make it suitable for a younger reader, but it's not.
No, it's not.
There's explicit stuff in here, and there's some drug taking. This is it's best off read as a Divergent style young adult apocalyptic setting, I think. Although it's much more Lord of the Flies, as you said to me in an email.
Yes, it's Lord of the Flies meets one of those apocalypse stories, essentially.
Yes.
Lord of the Flies meets The Testing, or Lord of the Flies meets Hunger Games.
It meets zombies.
The 5th Wave. I mean, there's all sorts of ones we could compare it to now that we have this lexicon of different books. I want to say that this book kept heightening on itself, which I thought was so great. Yes. We think things are bad enough with the volcano eruption. They get progressively worse. It's not bad enough that they're stuck without power. There's biological weapons messing with their brains. Very cool to just see things continually progress. I mean, I used to do improv comedy, and that was one of our big things. You have to keep heightening.
Yes.
Find a way to heighten it, raise the stakes of the scene, and Emmy Laybourne does that very, very well.
Definitely. And it's all told from Dean's first person past tense point of view as well. So I think that's even more clever to be able to have that much suspense. Because often the way that an author, and I've done this, all mine are a third person past. And it's very easy when you've got multiple points of view to build suspense just by the fact that some characters don't know what's happening with others.
Yeah.
But a lot of this has to happen outside of Dean's head. And so he has to kind of work out what's been going on and who's been saying what. And there are a couple of times where he stumbles upon something that's happening, but that would be normal anyway inside the confines of a kind of giant Walmart, which is very convenient that they had all those supplies. But I mean, that's the point.
Very convenient.
That's the story, and
that's what it is.
And she doesn't really make a lot of that, And in fact, it's really believable that these are just kids, and they're disoriented, they're waiting to be rescued, they expect adults to do everything for them, and they have been doing things for them, and they must pull themselves up by their shoelaces and get on with it. And it's really well told in that respect. Brilliantly told, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the first night, the high schoolers are just like, shut up, go get candy.
Yeah.
And it really develops from there.
And it's totally what would happen.
Yeah, it's exactly what would happen. So I think that was very real. And speaking of just the store, speaking of everything, we see exactly what we need to see, nothing more. Yeah. It's a pretty cool way to keep just like things cloistered, all
claustrophobic.
I think there's some opportunities to maybe make the store a little more defined. I'll admit I got a little lost in the geography sometimes. Like, okay, Astrid's hiding where exactly? Yeah. It's not like it's that big, is it? And they do explain away where she is, and that does end up making sense. But still, it's just strange at sometimes. So aside from that, though, I mean, the setting was very compelling. And when you're in one place, I mean, this is why George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, I forget which one it is, where they're in the shopping mall. I mean, that's why it makes sense as a great place to be, because you don't have to explain too much. You just, yep, they're in here, and crap's happening all around them. But we don't have to tell the whole story of everything that's happening, just what's happening in this store and nearby.
Well, that's right. I mean, the kids don't know, and they have to try and figure it out, and that's also part of that whole mystery. Here we are again. What is the mystery of the apocalypse, and how has it affected everybody? And there's the assumption first up that, well, this has just been some kind of weather event, and we'll be rescued. And then it starts to dawn on them that the world has changed irrevocably, and maybe even their parents are no longer with them, and so there's grief, and it's quite palpable as well, and interesting, that the older kids have to start thinking about how this is affecting the younger kids, and kind of looking after them so that they don't become a liability to them, I guess, in a way, as well as just doing the right thing and looking after them.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I'm ready for writer takeaways if you are.
I have a question for you though about the. I am almost ready. The whole chemical weapon kind of spill thing. I did struggle a little bit with the suspending disbelief on the.
It was a little wacky.
So it attacks some blood types this way, another blood. Why? And so I just felt that it was slightly too much of a device.
It was a little wacky,
and it was okay because I like Dean so much. He was me. That was me at school. It's like,
me too. Me too.
Yeah, nerdy, skinny, scrawny geek who just couldn't get any success, and the only way he could do it was by being a bit of a smart potty mouth dude.
Basically. Yeah.
Well, not that Dean's a potty mouth by any means. It's actually fairly,
just smart alecky.
It's just smart aleck. Yeah, that's right. So did you get hung up on the chemical weapons thing, or were you okay with that? And you said I
ended up being okay with it. I kind of liked it. I think it injected something interesting in there.
Yes.
And I think it was explained well enough because they explained it multiple times, kind of.
Yes.
And so I went with it. I think that I could see how some folks might not be on board with it right away. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I used to do freelance writing about chemical weapons.
Right, okay.
That made me just like, yep, chemical weapons. Cool, I'm on board.
Right. Well, see, I have a degree in chemistry, and so I was sort of, okay, but I need a bit more. I was totally okay with the fact that there was a spillage and that there was a problem. I can really believe that in an earthquake, apocalypse, or giant tsunamis, that we would have all kind of problems. I mean, in third world countries, they have problems just by the sheer fact that all their sewage is swept around. Can you imagine in a developed country where we've got all kind of things? We've got nuclear waste buried, we've got secret chemical weapons. It just would be, woo. And then to have some of this turn people into zombies and well, not even zombies, but kind of evil Hulk characters, rage monsters, who just want to get out there and beat people. And it was quite frightening. I really liked the claustrophobia. I thought that was extremely well done, and I did feel the threat from the chemical weapons nicely. So it wasn't awful. And for example, the divergent factions I found much harder to believe, much harder. So this was really it was a blip. That's all. But let's move on. Writer's perspective.
Lots of great specifics. We have Monument, Colorado. We have the 4 different ways that the biological weapons can attack the blood types differently. It made me feel very grounded in the story. Maybe that was why I didn't question things, because everything was so specific otherwise, and about where they were, about what foods they were eating there, about their specific jobs that Nico sets them up on. I felt very comfortable in the story. I didn't feel like things were stretching too much because there were so many specifics in there.
And like you said before, or alluded to at the start, there's conflict everywhere. I mean, there's conflict in every scene. There's the underlying mystery and suspense. She plays the conflict of the 14 kids, even the little ones, off against each other really nicely. And quite obviously, the whole chemical weapon thing really adds to that. It stirs some nice spice into it, makes it a part of the critical sort of plot turnings and twists, I guess, in a way. But it's a page turner. So, I didn't. It sounded like I was making a bigger thing of the chemical weapons thing. It wasn't a big deal, as you say.
No, it's just like you said, a blip. It was the thing that made you think twice,
Yeah, and maybe that's just because we read so many of these, we know we're going to review them, and so you're kind of a little more super aware than you would normally be reading a book. I think most people probably wouldn't notice it.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right about that. We're a little critical.
And it must have,
we're critics.
Yeah, it must have been fun to write, though. Hey, I mean, it's a disaster
I
movie.
Can imagine.
Yeah, I'm gonna write a screenplay for a disaster movie.
Yeah, blow him up, kill him, yeah. Real quick, that ending.
Yes,
I love it because it resolves some things, but it leaves a ton wide open.
Yeah.
It's almost like the ending of The Selection, which I know you didn't care for.
No.
In that it feels like we barely scratched the surface of this story. There's a lot left to come, but the major plot points of that first book get tied up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at a series like Stephen King's Dark Tower, for example, there are some of those books where the endings are atrocious, and I know he's known for it. But they just leave you right up in the air. And some, I read it once all the books were out, so I read it quite late. But I know some people had to wait 6 years for the next thing to come out. A kind of George R.R. Martin standards. So yeah, you definitely left a little in the air because the overall story is not resolved. But yes, I agree with you. The story setting for this particular book was resolved, but to really find out what happens to Dean, you have to read on. And as I've said in my notes, dang.
That's good.
That's good writing if you can pull off both of those. And it's going to be a great movie.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
I look forward to watching it for sure.
Yeah. Should we move to takeaways? So anything more?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm good. I'm ready to lead off.
I have one more thing actually, just very quickly, and it's really real quick. The dialogue, really well done. Nice teen dialogue. Really nice teen dialogue. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's very realistic for sure.
And you've got all these very stereotypical characters, so you've got to be very careful with doing that. And I think she pulls it off well.
I think so too.
Take it away. Take away the first takeaway.
When you go deep into the specifics, it'll help your readers get deeper into your story. They're grounded. They feel comfortable. They don't feel like, even if something does rattle them, like the chemical weapons thing takes them out of the story for a little, they're so grounded otherwise that they'll be good. So those specifics really can help.
Yes, like the way that, as you said, Nico ends up, directing the jobs, and it's really clever how the kids gradually get themselves organised and the pecking order establishes itself.
Yes.
A takeaway for me is conflict drives story, sweet and simple, and Emmy Laybourne gives it to us in spades, both inner and outer, which is really clever. So you feel Dean's inner conflict with the fact that he can't seem to be smart enough. He doesn't seem to appeal to the girl in the way that the kind of older, two older kids who are, obviously sporty, they're kind of jock characters. So lots of conflict. And I really look forward to book 2, which is called Sky on Fire.
Yeah. That'll be, I've kind of read some summaries and whatnot because I know I'm never going to get a chance to read books 2 and 3. I'm like, so what happens? I haven't been able to find a spoiler on the ending of the series yet. I kind of want to. Anyway, that's just me flipping to the last page. My third takeaway, I think setting your story outside of the main locations like New York and LA can really help your story to stand out. We've got Monument, Colorado, in the mountains, near NORAD. That leaves a lot of stuff open that just doing it exactly where everything else is, where all the TV shows and movies are, you get something else out of that. And we've had the Louisiana ones, the South Carolina ones, and I think the place becomes such an important character in those. And so really consider finding a new place to set yours so that you can stand out from the crowd.
Well said.
Thanks. I've got a prompt.
I think we should hear it then. Before
All right.
the tsunami hits.
Imagine you were cut off from all your loved ones during a disaster and surrounded by strangers and acquaintances. How would you interact with the people who might be your best chance of staying alive? Would you trust them? Why or why not?
Yeah. Sheesh.
It's tough.
It's a question that book will actually have you thinking as well. You know, how would, if you were Dean, how would you behave in that sort of scenario?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I like books that do that, you know.
Yeah, they get you thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can answer our prompt of the week on thesplitbookreviews.com. You can also email us your book suggestions at podcast@thesplitbookreviews.com. Go to iTunes and leave us a review because it helps more people to find us. It helps us to find more listeners, and it's just cool to see more reviews up there. Lastly, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Split, and that way you can see us, and you can see Robert changing his outfits and me just being lazy. But yeah,
I always think it looks like you're wearing bling as well with those headphones. It looks like you're
gold
or silver necklace. I think we should totally bling up for one episode. You know.
Oh, that's a good idea for one of like a book that's appropriate for blinging.
Yeah.
I feel like the
rapper's story.
the painting thieves one.
Yes, the High Society.
High society would have been a good one for that.
We could have come on with sunglasses for that one.
Yeah. Ooh, hello. So,
next week,
definitely. Yeah. Thank you for the suggestion, Jessica.
Yes, thank you. Jessica.
That was great.
That was.
I don't remember the name of the book we have next week. What is it?
The book we have next week is called The Knife of Never Letting Go. It's book 1 of the Chaos Walking series. By Patrick Ness. And funny enough, I had this on our list in the queue. And so I went to go and buy it. And I said, you purchased this book in November 2014. Oh, really? Okay.
There we go.
It's just classic Kindle reader, isn't it? You know, you got
I
these
know,
things.
seriously.
It must have been on a bargain, and I bought it. So it was already there waiting for me. And I have to admit, I've already started it. And I'm liking what I'm reading so far.
Oh, good. I'm excited to join you. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching. And we will see you next week for another episode of The Split.
Yeah. Let's go get our blood types checked, huh?